Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Hanging Out with Nolan Hong. And this week on the podcast, we're going out into the stars. We're going to be talking about all things out there in the spatial world. I have a really fun guest that was introduced to me by our good friend of the show, Denise. And he is the owner of Stargazers of Hawaii. They do public and private stargazing shows with a large portable telescope all over Oahu, and they even have a show at the International Marketplace where it is home to our Let's Play the Game show as well. So we're kind of like neighbors. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Nick Bradley. Hey, what's up, Nick?
Oh, Nolan, thanks for having me. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, of course. Now, Nick, I know that you do stargazing with your large telescope. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I think there's a lot more to it. So, can you explain to me what your company is and what kind of events that you put on for your customers?
Yeah, well, basically, we like taking our guests out to the night sky and showing them the wonders of the universe. And so, with the large telescope, we look at like the moon, the planets, the rings of Saturn, star clusters, galaxies, a lot of cool things. But in addition, we also like to do a tour of the constellations. We have a green laser pointer that looks like it points to the stars. And we talk about some of the mythology and legends. We talk about how the Hawaiians use the stars to navigate.
Oh,
And we answer
wow.
answer a lot of questions you might have, life, universe, black holes, aliens, whatever you got. We like to make it fun and an enjoyable experience that you hopefully never forget.
So there's a lot of things that you covered in there that you do talk about. Particularly of interest to me is our black holes and aliens. Where do you get the information that you've accumulated to share with your guests, whether it's the stories, the legends, answers to questions, and all that?
Yeah, I have a lot of news resources in astronomy, and I read up what's currently happening in astronomy and science, and that's where I get 99% of my information. It's like, hey, they just discovered something. It's like, oh, I gotta read about it. I want to know what's going on there. And then if a guest asks me, then we'll talk about that. I do sometimes get the question, can we see a black hole with a telescope? I just tell people, close your eyes. So
Oh
we like
man,
your response too.
yeah. And how are they responding to that answer?
Yeah, they love it. They love it. Yeah. Not everybody laughs, but yeah.
I love that because when I first heard about what your company does and stuff, I had seen like an advertisement for it because you guys are at International Marketplace and such, and I just assumed it's like, oh, you just walk up to the telescope, look at it, and go, oh, cool, there's a sky, then you walk away. Hearing how you described what your tours and stuff entail, it sounds so interesting and I could see myself just spending a very long time just soaking in all of the cool things and seeing how the things that we're seeing in the stars be relevant to things that we hear about or will learn about in your tours and such. So that's so cool that you guys do that. Where did you come up with this, idea for this type of experience that you have been providing to all of us Oahu residents?
Well, so I'll give you a little background on myself. So astronomy has been my hobby for about 25 years. Starting in middle school, been part of the Hawaiian Astronomical Society, which is a local nonprofit astronomy club. I'm one of those that went to the Bishop Museum, the planetarium, found out there's a club, and all the members bring out their big telescopes, and you look at some crazy things, and I got hooked. I gotta know everything, what's in space, how it all works. So my degree is actually in electrical engineering. I like
Huh.
taking things apart and try to figure out how it works. It works well for job wise because there's more need for an engineer than an astronomer. So I kind of went that path. Worked in construction for 10 years as a project manager and estimator for general and electrical contractors. But I kind of got tired of that. It was very interesting, but it was high stress, long hours,
Yeah, I
and
bet.
it was interesting to me, but not my passion. I'm always thinking about space. I take out my telescope to kind of relax. It's like, you know what, this is what I love to do. So actually, I see other handful of businesses doing stargazing as a business, and I kind of reached out to a few of them and just get some advice. And as you mentioned, nobody tries to touch Waikiki because there's a lot of light pollution. But
Yeah.
I grew up right in Kapahulu, so I know what the sky is in that area, and I can see the weather too, so that helps too. But yeah, so I actually had an opportunity to do a stargazing show at Royal Hawaiian Center for a blood moon lunar eclipse. And I wasn't working at the time, and a friend invited me to help him because he needed a second telescope. They're expecting a large crowd. Unfortunately, my friend got sick that day,
Oh no.
and so it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? I still want to do the show. Call my friend up. You know what? Let me pick up your telescope. I'm also involved with the University of Hawaii baseball team, and I'm the video coordinator for the team. And so they have practice that morning. I grab one of the players, come help me tonight. I'll pay you, and we actually had to move location because where we originally set up, it's like the moon's gonna be coming up right where this big building is. We're not gonna see
Oh.
anything. We have the news coming. We're gonna look very bad, and so it's like, okay, we gotta rush. We'll move to this bridge, put up two big telescopes, and we had 200 people come out.
Oh wow.
We got the moon came up right exactly between the buildings, blood red. Picture got featured on the news, and it was so much fun. I registered next week. I registered my own business. Haven't
Oh
looked back.
wow.
So
Holy smokes.
that was it. And I was like, man, I love it. And after 2 years of survival in the pandemic, finally getting busy and having so much fun. That's yeah. Hopefully, I haven't looked back. Yeah.
So when you say that a lot of businesses don't touch Waikiki because of the light pollution, how are you able to? I know you said you grew up in Kapahulu, but is it just a matter of knowing how to work around the light pollution, or that your specific telescope is able to work within those kind of situations?
Sure, great question. Yeah, so we were not trying to look at like the dimmest galaxies in Waikiki. We kind of save that for somewhere out of the city. We also do shows at Turtle Bay where it gets very dark, and then we'll look at some crazy, crazy stuff. But for in the city, we only look at the bright objects like the moon and the planets. You can see those in the middle of New York City. So if
Mm.
you know where to look, and every location I go to, I scout it out. So just like the international marketplace, it's like, okay, this angle is great for the moon coming up here. The planets are going to come here. I can set up here. Or there's trees on this side. It's going to block everything we want to see, so we can't go there. So everything's planned out, timed. And then for our shows at the international marketplace, we go on top of their garage roof and we turn off the lights. So if they didn't turn off the lights for me, couldn't do any shows. So they were open to it, and it's dark enough I can actually show you the stars. And then when the telescope is big enough to pick out difficult things, the star clusters, maybe a bright galaxy here or there, but not like really dim things. So we make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as when you said that when you first got started, before you even started your business, that you were bringing in your own telescope. Is this the same telescope that you're using now, or have you like? And I don't even know. Like, I assume that telescopes are very expensive, but I don't like. I have no clue or reference as to like what the difference in technologies are and stuff. And so, how does what you provide differ from, like, say, like when we're kids, like we ask for a telescope for Christmas, and we look at stuff out our window. Like, how is it different?
Yeah, so funny enough, I have the telescope that I feature on my website is actually my first telescope, and I've only had it for about 7, 8 years now. So that means my first 15 years in astronomy, I've never had a telescope. But I made friends with everybody in the astronomy club, and they let me borrow their telescope as far as when we have what we call star parties for the guests. And I asked my friends, "Hey, I want to look at this object in the sky on a star map." It's like, okay, you go find it. So they give me experience on the telescope, so I used their telescope. And that's how I learned. And then one day, one of my friends wanted to sell his telescope. He wanted to get a bigger one, and he gave me a half off price on it. It's a giant 7 foot telescope, so
Oh
we're
my
not messing
gosh.
around with any Costco ones. We
Yeah.
actually tell people try to avoid buying the really tiny small ones because we call those hobby killers, because they're very difficult to use. Even for me, I don't like using it. Just get a great pair of binoculars, and
Mm,
that would do even better than those long telescopes that you see in like the movies, and they're difficult to use.
yeah.
And the one thing we see a lot when people get frustrated, they'll put it in the corner, throw clothes on it, collects
Yeah.
dust, and every time they look up in the sky, it's like, oh, my telescope doesn't work. I'm so frustrated, and now they don't like astronomy.
Yeah.
Um, so what I tell people, well, first, just try to learn the sky, and then come to our public events for the astronomy club. They're free. Just get introduced to it. Check out so many different types of telescopes because it is a big investment money wise, and there's a lot of time involved. And depending what you want to do, astrophotography or just observing the moon, there's so many different types of telescopes for different uses. So my telescope, it's more advanced because it's my Galaxy Hunter. It's made for
Yeah.
galaxies, but the small ones you're not gonna see that. So it's all about size if you want to find dimmer things. So there is a lot involved in buying a telescope. Yeah.
So how do you when you use the term galaxy hunter, how do you I know it's probably a very complex process, but for us laymen's, how do you go about doing something like that? Like the way I imagine is I'm just going to go looking around and not knowing what I'm looking for and stuff. I'm sure it's way more complicated than that. And it's like, oh, what is this thing? Maybe that might be something. So how does it work for you as far as when you're searching out things and researching new places that you haven't discovered yet?
Yeah, so it's actually even simpler than just searching around. So, to give you a little background on my telescope, it's 7 feet tall, but it's completely manual. There's no electronics, no motors, no tracking the sky. So, I have to know the sky uh, very well. So, I've studied star charts, constellations. Now there's apps. So I grew up learning astronomy with all books and magazines, and so now we have apps. They're so much easier. You just hold it up to the sky, and it tells you what's what and what's where. So if I stay a little later, maybe at Turtle Bay when my customers leave, and it's a clear night, I'll stay for another 2 hours, and with my star chart, and it's like, okay, if I see here's the Andromeda constellation. There's some galaxies here that I had never seen. So let's pick out my star map. It's okay if you take this star, and we star hop to the galaxy. Now, other telescopes, they're very computerized. So if you set it up pointing to the North Star and you do a 3 star alignment with the computer, then you can just type in, oh, I want to go to the Andromeda galaxy, and you just press a button, and it'll automatically go there. So for me, that's kind of half the fun is trying to hunt for
Mm,
it and look
yeah.
for it on your own. So because I'm old school, but yeah.
Well, and you have a passion for it, whereas maybe for others, it's like they're trying to do something that, is they just want to cut to the chase and get to it because of, for whatever their reasons. But this is a passion of yours. It's so cool though, because when you think about looking at the stars and the galaxies and stuff, I have to imagine that there's more than just astronomy that you're learning, that you probably just in the way that you're describing it, I can tell that there's something like really that hits close to your soul when doing this. What do you notice, like, or do you have things that you could share that as you're stargazing and such that you can experience that maybe that helps you with connecting to your philosophy for life or reason for being and all that kind of stuff. Like, have you experienced those kind of things in doing your searches and stargazing?
Yeah, what I kind of tell people, for me, it's a big stress release for me, because it puts everything into perspective. It's a
Mm-hmm.
huge universe out there. We're very small, and so it puts things in perspective. Not kind of not always worrying about money or other factors, and just kind of enjoy life, be friendly to everybody, just be nice. And so that's what it's bigger than all of us. And it's even just looking up without a telescope, go to a dark sky, you see the Milky Way. It's like, wow, this is some cool stuff. And maybe you see a shooting star, and it's like, wow, what was that? Or satellites. And it's just becomes so enjoyable that way. And then when you get into dive into the details of it, if you remember Carl Sagan,
Mm-hmm.
the famous American astronomer, he would say, "We are star stuff." It literally means you cannot create anything heavier than helium. All the heavier elements are created in the core of stars. So we are born from the ashes of the stars. All our atoms in our body used to be part of stars. We are stardust. So it's kind of an interesting way to put it. Like, we are always connected that way to the universe. So.
What has been like your most memorable thing that you've seen or experienced in your many years of stargazing? Has there been something that stands out where like this was the coolest thing or most life changing thing?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny because I get that question a lot. I also get the alien question a lot too, but we can talk about that later. But I kind of tell people, so just to give you perspective on how much stuff I've seen. I've seen hundreds of galaxies, star clusters, nebulas, shooting stars, satellites, everything like that. But there's only one thing you can see with my size telescope. If you ever heard of a quasar, quasar is a very active and distant galaxy, and there's only one that you can see with my size telescope, and it's about 2 billion light years away.
Ooh.
And so it's the farthest thing you can see with my size telescope. I've only seen it once. It took me half an hour to kind of find it and verify that that little tiny, tiny dot in the light of the telescope is that quasar. And it doesn't look like much, but to me, it's like, wow, this thing's unbelievably far. And we can actually see it. So yeah, that's probably cool. I've only seen it once, but it's still quite memorable to me.
That's so interesting. When we said quasar, it made me think of. It sounds like I think there's a Marvel comic book character called that, and so it's nice to know that there's an actual something like more legitimate and cool than just a comic character. Um, I was gonna ask you. I interviewed a few months ago someone who used to have a career in NASA and stuff like that, and I had asked him this question, and I'm curious to hear your response to this one. And it's, when it comes to astrology, where people believe that things, you can gather information about life and predict things and stuff through the stars. And a lot of people say, like, oh, that's just all like made up mumbo jumbo and stuff. And then others like really believe in it. Knowing that you study the stars so much, do you agree with or believe or know that there is a correlation between the stars and I don't know our existence here, as far as like next month we're gonna get a raise or something like stuff like that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I can't tell your future. It's I wish I knew my future, but we just can't do that. But so the astronomy and astrology kind of used to be related, and so before, like hundreds of years ago, astronomy didn't have like we don't have astrophysics back then, right? It's only quite recently, within the last about 100 years or so, that the really interesting science in astronomy has been coming out. So that means for thousands, hundreds of years, and astronomy was just looking at the stars, counting them, looking at the color, making some constellation drawings, and telling stories. But also, where astrology comes from is if you watch the night sky, you see all the stars, they're fixed. They don't move year to year. All stars stay in the same position, except for seven objects that move across the sky. And we call those planets. And so planets means wanderer in Greek. So if you ever watch the sky, you
Ah,
see other little tiny stars moving throughout the constellations, and they keep that same. They're not like randomly going around the sky. It has a very strict line of where they go, and
hmm.
this is where, if you look at the background stars of where those planets are, that's how we get the zodiac constellations. So
Yeah.
when people say Jupiter is in Capricorn, or right now technically it's in Pisces, that's how we know the 12 zodiac constellations, is because ancients watched the sky. This is the path the moon, the sun, and all the planets take across the sky. So we don't see the moon or the sun randomly going all over the place. They keep strictly into that same zodiac path,
Right.
and so that's where it all started, and it's really interesting. But in the last 100 years, when hardcore science, quantum mechanics, astrophysics has really taken off, that's when we really start branching off from astrology. Now, astrology, of course, they want to be able to tell what's going to happen. Unfortunately, all their charts are wrong because
Oh.
when astrology started about 2,000 years ago, they had a different North Star. Now, we have our own North Star, but Earth rotates around an axis that points to our current North Star, but the Earth also has this wobble to it. So it goes through this 26,000 year cycle of moving across the sky. And just so happen in our lifetime, there's a decently bright star right where the North Pole is. But 2,000 years ago, they had a different North Star. And so, but astrologers didn't update their charts since then. So as the sky kind of shifted, as far as where it's pointed, now all the constellations are a little shifted with the planets. And so a lot of astrologers are one constellation off of what the actual planets are in the sky. So when people say, so if you go by like your birthday, so if you
Uh-huh.
want to know what sign you are, it's where the sun is when you're born. So I'm born on November 8th. And so if I look on November 8th, where is the sun on November 8th? Well, if you look on just the dates, okay, should be a Scorpio. But the sun is actually in the constellation Libra. So I would be Libra
Oh.
sign. So astrologers don't update their charts, and so that's when it really diverges. I've always tried to ask, like, can I get a star map from an astrologer? Because they're not going to give it to you because it's wrong. They know it's
Mm.
wrong because it's not a hard science. Yeah. So
Interesting.
if you have identity crisis, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, because I didn't read into it much, but I saw on like I think Facebook or something that there's all this controversy recently, or people like, oh, we all changed our signs all of a sudden and stuff. Is that what's kind of been going on?
Exactly. I mean, the sky hasn't changed. It's just they've never updated their charts. So if
Yeah.
they update their charts, then everybody shifts. Uh, as far as like knowing your different personality, again, I can't figure that out. You know, we have more than 12 personalities too, and then there's technically a 13th constellation, and it gets quite deep if you ever talk to an astrologer, and it's quite interesting what they do. But one thing I've always kind of said, you know, if you ask 100 astronomers science question, you're every single person is going to say tell you the same answer. But now you ask 100 different astrologers on your personality, you're going to get 100 different answers because
Yeah.
it's not a science. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. So where did you get your start with the fascination of, the stars and space and planets and stuff? Was that something that was born out of, a certain experience as a kid, or was this from school? I know you said you went to Bishop Museum, but was there any kind of interest before that?
Yeah, there was actually. The reason I have my degree in engineering is because I like taking things apart. So I actually had a book on constellations, and we'll go outside, kind of match everything up. It's like, oh, here's this group of stars on for this constellation in the sky, and my book says, oh, there's this little star cluster near this star. Okay, I have a little tiny binoculars. It's like, oh, I can kind of. It's very blurry because we're in the city, and like, oh, wow, this is what is this? I can't make it out. I want to know more. So that's kind of when I was luckily eventually went to the club. And it's like, yeah, giant telescope. Wow, that's what it really looks like. And that's pretty much how it started. Just curiosity and man, I gotta know what's out there. And it's just a rabbit hole after rabbit hole. It's like, wow, you learn galaxies, learn the universe, learn about string theory or anything science. Is just very fascinating.
What did your friends and family think when you let them know that you've started your own stargazing company, and especially from coming from the industry that you did come from, was there any kind of like concern, like, hey man, you got this great degree and then you're gonna start something that not a lot of people are familiar with and stuff?
Right, exactly. And I did get some pushback from some people, but I've had when I talk to my coworkers about my hobby, is like they can see my passion and they actually push me. It's like, why don't you start stargazing company? But it's like, man, I've never run a company before. I
Yeah.
don't know anything about business or sales, so it took me maybe a few years like until I had that opportunity at the Royal Hawaiian Center, and once I got that experience and now I had some momentum, it's like, you know what, I know I got a great product. I've been working with the public for many years, and so we're literally repeating what I would say during my public shows with the astronomy club, and we would have the public come out, look through our telescopes, and it's the same thing, but now I get to try and make a living out of it, and so
Yeah.
it's a little different. And so but since been having a lot of success. Yeah, everyone's very supportive. I do get the question a lot. Yeah, why did you diverge from your degree? And actually, I tell people, I had to use my degree for a little bit, but it was a great experience. Even though it was stressful, it was very interesting and learned a lot, and actually helps me with how I run the business now. And so a lot of experience from that works well with the business side of things. And then once it gets dark, then we just go, we just have fun, and it's just like a hobby. It's just a fun hobby.
Have you ever taken your telescope off island? I know it's a huge thing, so it'd be really hard to move, but
Yes.
have you?
So, yes, I actually just came back from the Big Island a couple of weeks ago, and we were at Mo'okini Heiau, which is the birthplace of Kamehameha the First. We
Oh,
got
wow.
invited, and we were participating with Ohana Kilo Hoku, which is another nonprofit astronomy outreach organization, and it was the best sky I've ever seen. It was so
Oh,
dark.
really?
You can see the Milky Way from horizon to horizon over the sky. It's like, wow. But yes, we can travel with the telescope. It's made to travel. I have a Toyota Camry, and I can fit two large telescopes in the Camry with a passenger, and so the telescopes are made to collapse and made to travel. So the person before me is taking his to Australia and
Oh wow.
East Coast, so it's made to travel. It's actually a custom made telescope, so you're not going to find that on any stores. Somebody in our astronomy club, Barry Peckham, he worked at a cabinet shop, so on his off time, he would design and mill these telescopes from scrap wood, and
Whoa.
he sold a few of these to our astronomy club. And so I have two of those now, and my friends in the club still have a handful. That sometimes it's funny. We see it's a little conference when we all get together with our same model telescope. Yeah.
When you say that the experience on the Big Island a couple weeks ago was the best sky you ever seen, what lends to that situation? Is it because of the location that you were at, as far as the angles that you're seeing the sky at, or because it's the less light pollution? Like what factored into making such a optimal experience for you?
Yeah, it was basically out in the middle of nowhere where no lights and no light pollution. So we're in North Kohala. It's just pitch black. You can barely, if we didn't have any light, I don't think you would be able to see your hand in front of you, honestly. It was that
Wow.
dark. And so what I tell people who come into Waikiki, and it's like, oh, where do you, how do you see, do I have to go to Mauna Kea? No, you just got to get out of the city, but first make sure it's safe. Don't go anywhere that's not
Yeah.
safe. There are a lot of dark areas, and say you just got to get out of the city, either North Shore, um, some of the beaches, very dark. You can see the Milky Way, uh, but again, be safe. Even surprisingly, you can see the Milky Way in Kapilani Park. That's how
Oh,
dark Kapilani Park is, even though it's just walking distance to Waikiki.
yeah.
And that's just because only pretty much just Honolulu is the bright spot and for the light pollution. And and for the Big Island, they have light pollution laws because of the observatory on Mauna Kea. They can't have a specific color of light. They can't have the bright white LEDs, or they're gonna mess up the astronomy researchers all the way up the mountain, because these things are so sensitive. Any stray light can affect their research. But Oahu, we have none. We have no. It's a lost cause for light pollution on Oahu. So you do have to. Um, if you go to Maui, even Kauai, even
Hmm.
the, Kauai, because of the birds, they have light pollution laws, and that's when you get to see see the sky like the navigators, like they're in the middle of the ocean type sky. Yeah.
Wow. What I assume that when you go to different parts of the world, you have different accesses to the galaxy. Um, what do you what do you think or know is like unique to stargazing from Hawaii that is special, and why say someone like a visitor would appreciate coming to do a stargazing show here versus like I don't know, Omaha, Nebraska or something.
Sure, sure. So we have in Hawaii, we're kind of closer to the equator, so we see more southern objects in the south that the mainland, the U.S. mainland, does not see, and we're able to see the Southern Cross that nobody in California or Florida maybe barely get to see it. Very like hugging the horizon, and makes it very difficult to see. But in Hawaii, gets about 10 degrees above the horizon, and you can see it. So I do have customers from the mainland. It's like, oh, we've never seen the Southern Cross. But in return, I get customers from Australia that say, hey, I've never seen the North Star or the Big Dipper, because you have to be farther north to see those. And so we're close to the
Oh,
equator. And so we can kind of see more or less about 80% of everything possible in the sky. Now, we're not directly on the equator, so there are a few things that I've always wanted to see that you would have to go below the equator to see. Like there's two satellite galaxies that are in the sky next to the Milky Way that you can see with your naked eye. And I've never seen it myself, but you see it in pictures. It's very obvious, um, and they're called the Magellanic Clouds after Magellan, and they're big satellite galaxies that orbit around our Milky Way galaxy, and you only can see that in the southern hemisphere. I believe on the very southern tip of Big Island, or if you go on the very top of Mauna Kea, you might see that star cloud, a Magellanic Cloud, just literally touch the horizon, and we're just so
Oh,
close to seeing it.
oh,
We just can't. So that is on my bucket list to see, along with like the Northern Lights or anything like that. Yeah.
oh man. Wow, that's super cool. Now you said that we would talk about aliens later on. I think people have been patiently waiting, like, okay, get to the alien talk. So what are your thoughts based on what you know? I mean, to hear the way you describe so many galaxies and billions of light years away, I have to imagine that what even though we don't have hard proof, like it's you gotta assume there are other life forms out there, right?
Yeah, I believe there is. Fortunately, finding it is a whole different story. It's the space is big, universe is big, and so what I can't tell people is like, yeah, hey, we're still trying to look for intelligent life on this planet. If that's kind of one of the jokes I use. But to be serious about it, it's like, yeah, astronomers, we want to see, we want to find life out there in the stars. We're always looking up, but we also try to be logical. If we
Mm.
see something weird, we're not going to go zero to aliens. Like, okay, is that an
Yeah.
airplane? Is that a satellite? Is that a shooting star? Is that something else? So we mythology, we go through all our checklists, and before it's like, okay, I don't know what this is,
Mhm.
but I would love to see something weird in the sky.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking up, and it's funny because you never hear UFOs being reported by astronomers because we,
Yeah.
we we never we know what's in the sky, and we're gonna be logical about this. Now, I've talked to a lot of people who have seen interesting things. Like, oh, that's interesting, but it's I would need to see it myself in order to kind of kind of get a sense of what they're talking about.
Right.
Or people see a lot of satellites go across the sky, and they say, "Oh, well, I've seen something that zigzags across the sky. I've never seen that. I would love to. I can't explain what that was, but yeah. So there are things that I would love to see. And as far as like finding life out there in space, they have this analogy and great comparison. We've only explored very little of space itself. So it's like if you take a 8 ounce glass of water from the ocean, that's how much of the ocean we've
Oh
explored
wow.
compared to the whole world. And so space is big. Even our closest star to us is 4 light years away. To put that into perspective, 1 light year is the distance light travels in 1 year, and it comes out to 5.8 trillion miles for 1 light year. And so, yeah, space is big. So even if we find a signal, it's like, oh, it's gonna be can't really communicate with it. We can't
Yeah.
go there, and it's an interesting thought. Would love to visit there, but eventually, just like it's less things
Yeah.
change significantly in technology, or you put a lot of money into this to figure this out and go there. I don't think it's going to be possible to visit that, and we have a hard time going to the moon.
Yeah.
But I hope that answers your question. I know you had one more.
No, for sure.
Okay.
No, no, no. Yeah. It was what I was expecting. But the way you explain it puts it way more into perspective because especially your comparison of the 8 ounce glass of water in the ocean, it's like, man, I think when we watch movies and stuff like that, we see Star Wars and all things, we just feel like it just makes it feel like it's so much closer. Like I've been to these places in my mind, So,
Yeah,
so to
reality is
match,
a little
yeah,
different. Yes.
yeah. So when you were growing up, were you a fan of like that kind of stuff, like Star Wars or Star Trek and things like that because of that, or were you more like this is stupid? I know what the real galaxy is like.
It's funny because I never actually married the two. I talked to a lot of other astronomers and say, yeah, they got into it because of science fiction. Well,
Yeah,
I got into it because of just general curiosity. But I did watch Star Wars, but I never kind of put two and two together for
yeah.
some reason. I do now, of course, but it was yeah. I like Star Wars. Funny enough, I've never seen Star Trek. It's just I don't know. It's maybe not my cup of tea, but I do watch a lot of science fiction. Not everything. Maybe some of the other movies like Don't Look Up. That
Yeah,
I
yeah. Oh,
refuse. I refuse to watch that just because it's gonna get under my nerves. And
I
yeah,
watch it. It's crazy. It's more to do with like uh commentary on our like political environment than it is to do with. But yeah, I could see you would be pretty fired up about some of the stuff talked about in there. So I gotta admit, because this is the first time we've met, we've talked through email, but when I saw your name on the email, Nick Bradley, I automatically, and I'm ashamed to say, I assumed like a Caucasian man, like, and you probably had glasses and the mustache and all this stuff like that. And then now I see, I'm like, oh, you look very local and young and stuff. What is your ethnic background, and are you born and raised here on Oahu? And
yes.
what's a little bit about
Born
your
and
background?
Definitely. Yeah, born and raised here. Grew up in Kapahulu. I'm still living in Mo'ili'ili, so I really haven't left the city. And went to high school at Midpac. My ethnicity is it's mixed, just like so many other people. I got Chinese, Japanese, Hawaiian, English, Danish, and Swedish. So half Caucasian, half Asian. Yeah. So some people don't even know what I am.
Yeah,
And it's funny you mentioned the age too. A lot of people think I am very young, and it's the Asian too. Asians don't raisin, right? So some people think I'm still in high school, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
and people who I go to meet, either possible clients with hotels or other venues, they think I'm going to be 50, 60 years old.
right, right.
And so there were a lot of people is like asked, it's like, wow, you do not expect what you're going to expect that. So it's a common thing. But that also gives me more because I'm younger, I have more energy, and
Yeah,
I'm open minded to doing other weird things like staying out all night where maybe other people can't. I've had customers, we stay up out till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., just talking story, and it's just so fun. And yeah,
well, I can totally see why you've been so successful with your tours because you're right. The energy that you exude is so infectious and engaging, and you've been able to take what some may think is like, oh, this could be like when we think of like star experts and stuff, we think of like the and here in this fourth quadrant, but with you, I'm like, yeah, dude, this sounds awesome. Like, I feel all fired up,
yeah,
and it's exciting, and I love that you also incorporate humor into it as well. Like
yes,
you keep it fun,
yes.
whereas some could turn it into more of like like scholarly type of thing, which not everybody's into that kind of thing.
Right, and I'm not into just dry lectures too. I
Yeah.
fall asleep during dry lectures, so I of course I watch other YouTube videos on other people who present this stuff, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's one of my big heroes, or Carl Sagan. They make it fun, so it's yeah, we do a lot of science, but it's also entertainment. You gotta be
Hmm.
interesting, or you're not gonna get hired back. And
Yeah.
I'm a big comedy guy, so I watch a lot of stand-up comedy, and so if I every once in a while I get to make a joke, hey, that's bonus for me. So I'm never gonna be that good of a comedian, but hey, if I put in a good joke every once in a while, hey, that makes me happy, even more happy.
Well, I appreciate that because I too am a fan of comedy, and I just feel it keeps the energy and the mood in the right place when you can do it right. You
Exactly.
mentioned that you were working with the University of Hawaii baseball team doing you're the videographer or something. What was that about it? And are you still working with them?
Yeah, I've actually been with the team for this coming season. Will be my ninth year with them.
Oh
So
wow.
baseball has always been my other passion, and so like every little leaguer, they want to be a professional baseball player, and just see the little leaguers win the World Series, it's like even more so. It's like uh, but yeah, so I grew up playing sports, soccer, baseball, and that was kind of my other love. And after college, it's like I didn't want to go into construction. I wanted to go into baseball. I wanted to be a baseball scout. Fortunately, I didn't play in high school because mid pack is so good. I knew I wasn't gonna make the team. I made all stars in little league, so I'm good, but I'm not at that level where I'm gonna make a starter on mid pack. So I just hit the books and just learn. But
Yeah.
after college, I want to try maybe scorekeeping or anything kind of in the background for baseball. So I interned for a collegiate baseball league locally, and one of the assistants for UH was in that league too. And then one day he calls me up. It's like, "Oh, UH just put in this new video system, but we don't have anybody to run it. It's two weeks before the season starts."
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
"Oh, can you help us?" It's like, "Yes, um, I'm in." And so before that, I did statistics and um, website management for the ILH varsity baseball. So we would score keep. I've score keep hundreds and hundreds of games and watch baseball. So, but it doesn't bring in a lot of money. So it's more,
Right, right.
it's just a hobby, maybe a side job. And so I just volunteer for UH, but I get to go to the games. I get to talk to the coaches and the players, go on the field every once in a while. And it's just my love of baseball. So I'm always watching baseball during the day. So I like to say I do baseball during the day and astronomy at night, and that's just the best of both worlds for me.
You have one of the most unique lives that I have been exposed to. It sounds so rewarding and fun, and I just love that you have gravitated towards what fulfills you versus you had the opportunity to just be like, I'm gonna follow the money and do go down the path that everyone traditionally thinks of, and instead that you've followed what motivates you, what fills your passion bucket, and I just that your energy and joy just is so infectious. I was like, see, I love talking to people like you versus the one that's like, oh, I'm so busy
Yes.
at work, can't wait for Friday. Sounds like you never have a case of the Mondays. It sounds like, oh, I want to be there. Let's go. Let's do this. Yeah.
Well, that's when I actually knew I kind of had to make a change, is because in construction, it's like, man, you're just hitting schedules. Like, okay, what's next? It's just is work to home, fall asleep, back to work. And
Mm-hmm.
I was not a fun person when I was working in construction, depressed,
Oh
and
wow.
it's like, man, it's like, are we gonna win the next job? What's next on the schedule? Can't really enjoy it, and so. Uh, I'm so passionate what I'm doing now because I know it's like I don't want to work in a cubicle anymore.
Yeah.
So we have to put in as much energy into it because man, this is so much fun to begin with. I don't want to lose it, and yeah, so really appreciate you having me on and getting to share. So yeah,
No, this has been so awesome, man, and thank you for being so kind with my amateurish views on things. Like I was like, oh man, I'm gonna sound like such a doofus asking some of these questions, but I genuinely want to know these answers, so I'm just gonna cast that aside. And you've been so kind and generous with your time and patient with me and my silly questions. So thank you.
No, that's honestly, I love those type of questions because that means people are thinking about it, but they don't have anybody to ask.
Yeah.
For me too, I don't have anybody to ask, so I have to really look deep in on the internet for answers or ask other people. So it's even harder when I have a question. Um, but yeah, it's funny because almost every show people ask say it's like, oh, I have a stupid question, and it's like, wow, it's quite surprising to me. It's not a stupid question because you want to learn, and I want to tell you. And I get some really interesting questions. Like I would say the most interesting question I've ever had. We were doing a homeschool group, and a little 2-year-old girl, very shy. She was hiding behind her mom's leg. She asked me, "It's like, why doesn't the moon fall from the sky?" And it's like, wow, that's she knows what's going on, and so I kind of explained it to her in her terms, and it's just so rewarding to kind of see that.
Mm.
And then we also work with we've done shows for foster kids or challenge kids, the hugs organizations
Oh
with
wow.
kids with medical problems, and basically we just love to just share the universe again,
Yeah.
and just give back. And we like love doing schools because that's where I started as a kid,
Yeah.
and even to see the adults, they become kids when they come
Yeah.
to my show. So no questions out of bounds. It's, hey, you're curious, you're here, that's all that matters, and just keep looking up and keep asking questions, but find those answers.
That's so awesome. You are a saint for being that way. And so you also aside from your public shows, you do private shows as well. So does that mean that like businesses hire you to do like events or something like that? Like how else do you provide services with your
Yeah.
company?
So basically, what we do is great for anything outside at night, whether it be for schools, birthday parties, weddings, couples, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, corporate events, family get-togethers. Uh, Literally anything you can just throw around, just pop a telescope on there, and we're going. So if you have, I've had birthday parties with kids who are big space enthusiasts, and it's like, okay, let's show you with a big telescope what you can see out there, and it's so cool to see so many kids are so interested in it at a very young age, at like 5 years old or younger, and it's like, wow. And so to be able to uh, give back to them, and be able to answer their questions, and hey, maybe one of them is going to be the next astronomer. It's such a cool thing, and then we do a lot of free shows too because we want to give back to the community. Even so, understand you can't afford a private show, and we want to make it affordable to you, even if it's just a sample, like either the moon or rings of Saturn. Just give that kid a spark, and you
Hmm.
never know where it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you do these free events and such, any of your events really, it's on your website under there's an events tab and people can find it there. Or do you also put it out like in a newsletter or social media as well? Like how can people stay connected with what's going on with you and where the next event is taking place?
Yeah, so we have our website where we announce our events, and we have Instagram, Facebook. Instagram and Facebook are pretty much linked, so whatever's put on one goes
Hmm.
on the other one. And so you can follow us there, or if you have any questions, just reach out to me. We can answer any questions you got. It's only one person running the company, so all goes to me, and I'll try to get back as soon as I can. And if you're looking for something more specific, we can definitely help you out. Or if you're going to visit the Big Island, we can give you advice on what to look at. Even if you don't hire me, hey, I still want you to go experience it on your own.
Oh, that's super cool of you. And as far as your reoccurring shows, the international marketplaces is where people can go. And can you give us a little bit of information on that show, like when it is and how people can sign up for it, or is our walk ups encouraged?
Yeah, so our two main reoccurring shows are at the International Marketplace, where we do these are paid ticketed shows for $30 a person, and you get 1 hour of time with me and the telescope, and we limited it to about 20 people max. Usually, you get about 10 people on average, so it's still a very intimate group.
Hmm.
And we do a tour of the stars and the constellations. It's more in depth, and so we tell a lot of stories within that hour. Um, Excuse me. The other place we go to is the Royal Hawaiian Center once a month, either looking at the moon or the planets, and those are free for the public. And we usually average between 100 and
Ooh,
150
wow.
people coming out. So with that many people, we only have time to look at one object, and we time it. Okay, the moon's going to be in the sky right here, and so everybody can get stand in a long line and check out the moon. I can take pictures of the moon with your phone and to give you something to take back, because a lot of things, in space, you can't hold it in your hand.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the moon, the moon is easy. I can take a picture in 2 seconds with the moon, and those are free events. And we also do shows once in a while at Kapahulu Shopping Center. We were actually there last night. We had about 50 people come out to there, and we talked good on the rooftop of Safeway. And we also have a big upcoming event at Salt Kaka'ako. We're expecting 1,000 people. We're partnering with the University
Oh
of
my
Hawaii,
gosh.
and we're bringing out between 8 and 10 telescopes. We have a navigator that's going to come talk story with us, and super fun. We're gonna turn off the lights and just make it a big star party.
Is that going to be on the rooftop of the parking structure there, or where are you guys doing it?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
observing with the telescopes will be on the rooftop, and in the barn level of Sakaka'ako, the University of Hawaii is going to set up some activities, science activities. They're going to also have a Lego group there for the kids that like Lego.
Oh,
'Cause I
neat.
like Lego too. I have so much Lego. That's a whole nother story. And um, one of the other vendors is called Kilahoku VR. They have a virtual reality station,
Oh,
like you're on
wow.
the Hokulea, and you can like you're on the Hokulea on the canoe, and you can see the stars, and
Dang.
connected to the VR. It is another monitor screen. So if you're not using the goggles, you can see what the person is looking at through the goggles, because there's so many people. We need to be able to show uh, everybody who's not going to get a chance to go
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so for those interested in learning about that particular event, is that information also on your website as well?
Yes, so
Okay,
that's going to
perfect.
be actually it's going to be announced today, later
Oh,
today. So it's actually not even on my website, but it should be announced today, and it's going to be a big public push to get the word out.
well,
Yes,
by the time this episode airs, it'll be on your website. So
yes,
those listening, don't worry, it's on there now. And that's stargazers of Hawaii.com, correct?
correct. Yes, yeah, and yeah, please follow us on Instagram. And hey, if you see anything weird in the sky, you let me know first.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we got to answer some questions that I had here, and we need to go get to the bottom of this. Nick, this has been really awesome. I'm so glad that Denise introduced us, and I'm so glad that you took some time out of your schedule to come hang out with me and talk story with me. And this has been really exciting. And I'm gonna get my wife and the kids in the car, and we're gonna come to one of your shows. I'm really excited about it, and can't wait to see what's out there in the sky.
Thank you so much, Nolan, for having me on. It was a pleasure.